Sorry, I accidentally pressed the fucking record button, so I guess this will be a part 2 video. But yeah, so on the back of what I was just fucking saying, like, it's already hard to be an antinatalist because a lot of people already have kids. And, you know, I can't blame most people because, unlike me, who was told, you know, we only had one child because we don't want to adversely impact the planet by having more than one child, by my parents. Like, you know, a lot of people, if you try to argue that they shouldn't keep having kids, especially beyond 2, for one couple, like, it's hard to do that without sounding like an asshole, because people will think, oh, you're attacking my kids, you're attacking my choices, you're saying I'm, like, imprudent and unethical by, you know, having this bundle of joy that I'm, you know, primed with like these endogenous releases of pleasure chemicals to, you know, love and fucking fawn over unlike anyone else. Yeah, it's just you know, like a big source of, I think, existential dread for a lot of people are, and I think this is kind of interesting because I've always thought that the notion of, like, destiny or fate was something that was like in, say, biblical times. What's up, Chris? In, say, in biblical times, you know, shit was going wrong, and you had nothing but your faith in God and the universe and good, then, you know, for something shitty to happen without any, like, clear explanation, because, you know, they didn't have, you know, meters and like lofty equipment that we can use to say with, like, very definitive numbers, levels that we can yield with these various devices we use to gauge this or that. They would just say, oh, well, it's God's will, this is going to come back around in some way and help me out. But now I think a big source of existential dread is the notion of legacy, and whether our legacy is something like that throughout our lives is set in stone and we don't have any control over it. Like, the notion of losing control of the people in terms of, say, like, something that throws your routine off and your housing situation becomes unstable, your job becomes unstable, like all these Maslow's hierarchy-esque fundamentals for good mental health fall to the wayside. You know, it's to think that it's like, oh, this is intentional, my life was destroyed intentionally. Now I think that would have an opposite effect on us, where we, out of desperation, you know, will scream to the sky like, God, where are you? Why are you letting this happening? Or why are you allowing this to keep happening? Why at all? I know we never talk, but now I'm in a completely powerless place where, you know, when people are in helpless, desperate states, that's when they tend to adopt, you know, religious beliefs more often than not. But now the notion of destiny is also more physical. Like, look at Japan, for example. You know, like, if there was anyone worse than the Nazis in the 20th century, it was the Imperial Japanese. Like, I think it's just less obvious because they didn't have, like, the mass caliber just genocide factories that were concentration camps to the degree that the Nazis did. They just, like, overall weren't as well equipped. You know, they had super shitty equipment. So essentially, their leaders would just glorify the fuck out of suicide and be like, here, take this anti-tank mine and run at a fucking tank with it. Here, take some meth and kamikaze that fucking that battleship, like, you know, like it's something that, you know, like Germany's really had to, for example, live down the whole Nazi association. As I said before, every German person I've gotten to know has apologized to me for the Holocaust, and they're like usually my age or a little bit older. And it's important, of course, to acknowledge like the wrongs of your culture and history. That's part of how we prevent shit like that from happening again. But you know, like, I'm talking like you really are like just bellowing out like how despaired they are, like they were there doing it themselves. You know, but there is something just to be said for generational trauma, that's for sure. But yeah, like with the West, like we have this to a little bit less of an extent than Japan, for example. But like the notion that we are born and we are made to go to the school that we didn't choose, and we are told we should have a job as this or that, we should be okay with a 9 to 5, and you know, we should feel freed by the free market and all the stuff, like, you know, we should just watch the climate completely spin out of control. Like, you know, there are many ways that society could end, but there's also many ways the world could end, just like overnight, like super volcanoes, mass carbon release from the Arctic if certain ice sheets, glaciers melt, like all of this chaos, essentially. I'm calling it chaos because, you know, we just only have so much control over it, especially as individuals. Like all that, which takes away the sense of autonomy, whether our sense of autonomy is an illusion or whether it's like as real as we like to think it is. In my opinion, it doesn't matter. It's kind of like the simulation theory. If we live in a simulation, we're already here, so what? Everything still feels as real as when I, like before I heard about the simulation theory. So I kind of feel the same way about that with identity. If we have the illusion of choice, we might as well try to use it. But the thing is, there are, like in Japan, which is why I evoked the example, you know, there's a heavy conformist culture. It's like the parents know exactly what they want you to do with your life and your brother or sister's lives before you're even born. Like, you know, it's like, you're gonna work this job, you're gonna, you know, go to this school, and, you know, there's this uniformity with our conformist culture that it just crushes people, you know, which is, when paired with the shell of let me take this fucking seat, it's hard as fuck out. With the shell of imperial Japan, imperial Japanese culture, where, you know, the shogun, the samurai, you know, they're glorified, and the samurai are, you know, thought to be lone warriors. So, you know, it makes the notion of isolation from the outside world like a little less demonized than, you know, it would be here, where here, you know, you just be called a mom's basement dweller or whatever, you know. But they have like a term in Japan for those types of people, hikikomori, I think is the term, and needless to say, it leads to people not getting out, not forming relationships, not having families, not procreating. And it's interesting because there is an element of cultural protest, and like Japan, unlike Germany, has like taken credit for very little of the atrocities that were instigated in World War II. But I wouldn't hold that against the young Japanese person today. But with, say, like Japan's prime minister, who I think, whoever was the prime minister in 2014, I don't know too much about Japanese politics today, but like he disavowed Unit 731, he disavowed the rape of Nanking, which are both I think the most extreme examples of inhumanity, just deplorable behavior in World War II that there are. Like if they had something like Unit 731 on the level that they have, that the Germans had concentration camps, I think a lot more people would have died. The rape of Nanking was so bad that if you go there today, there's a statue of a Nazi, because the Nazi saw what was happening and went, this is too much for even me, like, my God, they're just going around and lopping people's heads off, like. And so he sheltered a couple thousand people, and they survived that, plundering siege, where killing and, sexual assault became just a pastime. Very, very bleak moment in human history, let's say that. But yeah, it's very disturbing that the same minister who decries the inhumanity of Japanese internment camps in the West, which I think are a bad thing. I get that during a wartime era, there's probably a lot of paranoia, but that definitely doesn't excuse displacing people from, homes that they have made homes with their families and, their lives, and throwing them into these camps. Because, without discrimination, it's just it's totally discriminatory, just, inherently, but, without any, this person seems like a spy more than the other person. It's just like, no, they all could be spies, let's displace all of them. We have that in Canada, too. We did that as well. And, our politicians acknowledge out loud that was bad and that was wrong to do. And whether or not the politicians were just trying to, curry some favor with the public, or they genuinely believe that, and made a sincere apology, you can contest that till the fucking cows can come home. But what matters is that it was acknowledged and that we did say, hey, that was our bad. We're going to try to take responsibility for that, even though we weren't there, and we may have made different decisions if we were alive then. But, that is a whole other theoretical fucking argument. Because, would we really? Yeah, so it's just, I think, really despicable for him to be like, we were the victims, but also the most vicious, not even towards the rest of the world. I mean, yeah, well, they were, obviously, but to their own people as well, the Kemputai would go door to door, fucking shooting people's dogs dead, in letters to Iwo Jima. Fucking great movie, by the way. I haven't seen Flags of Our Fathers, which is from the American perspective of the assault on Iwo Jima, which was, I wouldn't say it's what crippled Japan, because Japan just wasn't going to give up. That was why the atom bomb was dropped, and as that tiny amount of the payload that made it to the ground and combusted in both Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But those were the only things that made the Japanese finally surrender. And I'm, also, I want to emphasize that I would not at all hold the Japanese public at that time accountable for that. It may have been that they were dangerously complacent, but because of secret police like the Kemputai, they were very terrified because they're seeing their husbands whisked away to commit suicide for their country. They're seeing eugenics where they're plucking and this went on after World War II, after Japan swore they wouldn't do stuff like this. They had forced sterilization of mentally ill people. And I'm a full-on proponent because of my antinatalist and misanthropic beliefs, which again are mostly practical and just like I want the planet to be a livable place in 50 years. That is the main motivation behind such beliefs. So there's just, it just makes sense to make more of a practical argument, but so this the whole shell of that imperial culture it's also evident in the mass suicides that happen in Japan. Not mass suicides in that, like, it's a bunch of people at once doing Jonestown or whatever, drinking the Kool-Aid. No, it's like there are sites where people go to commit suicide, like that forest, the suicide forest. What's it called? I can't remember, the Death Forest or whatever. The place that Logan Paul filmed an actual dead body and made one of those first apology videos that catalyzed a fuckload of almost identical apology videos to come. But because of that, and the notion of the samurai, they would commit suicide by seppuku, a lot of the Japanese at the end of World War II, like the members of Unit 731, they were forced to commit seppuku, and in just about any totalitarian regime, they took these little daggers and shoved them into their hearts. Pretty painful way to fucking go. If that even works, you'd probably have to try a couple of times, which I can't even imagine. But it was if you don't do this, we'll kill your family. That's what Shiro Ishii said to the people who work there. And not that I have much sympathy for those people, because they were some of the most atrocious monsters that I can even think of in history. It just was crazy that 10,000 of them died, and Shiro Ishii didn't commit seppuku. He made a deal with the US government to give them all the documentation that he had on his human experimentation, and they gave him a cushy job in Virginia working at a bioweapons facility. But that notion of seppuku is with being a loner, isolating yourself. And isolation is something that is a sensation often accompanied by alienation. So even if it is self-imposed exile, oftentimes we want to, blame the world. And I think, with the example of Japanese culture that I'm using, the reason I keep hearkening to them is because they are just a very good example of this. You see that it's like an act of protest almost, to say, screw it, I'm not working at this job, I'm not going to this school, I'm just going to become a hikikomori and go watch anime until I do my modern seppuku or whatever. So because of that, there's been massive population collapse, along with a gratuitously materialistic culture. I'm sure you guys have seen pictures of the vending machines that sell used panties and shit. They can simulate all the aspects of a relationship that some, particularly men, would want, I would think. Lots of sex dolls, lots of companions you can hire. So it's a case of, because of culture, their population has plummeted to the point where now they're saying to foreign people, please come to our country and fuck our women and have babies. Like, I think that if we were ever to get the world's population under control, because like if people were to stop having babies altogether in the West, yeah, we would be screwed. But you know, the likelihood of that is so infinitesimal, it's absurd. I'm trying to find a way to balance my camera without fucking knocking it over. Oh, look who it is. What's this guy called? Charlie something rather. Yeah, he's like one of the first like instances of graffiti in the West. I think it started in World War I. I think it's contested whether it was World War I or World War II, but people started drawing them on, or painting them, I guess, on, or well, drawing in barracks, painting on tanks, I think aircrafts, naval carriers. You see that little Charlie dude with his big phallic nose. And a lot of World War II pictures. But yeah, some people say he came out of World War I. But anyways, yeah. So you know, like I am overall a practical antinatalist. I think that it's like if we were to hold off on having kids for as a you know, Western culture, as a society, for say 10 years or so, I think we would see enough of a depletion in population that, you know, we'd be able to just go back to like having families or whatever. You know, we do have the technology to gauge whether people are procreating too much or too little. We do have that data. We do have those stats available to us whenever we want. You know, like even oil companies will do data on, you know, the remaining resources, and you know, they'll contrast those things to you know, the way they may be curtailed with exponential population growth if it continues at the rate it's continuing. You know, like we need those fundamental Maslow's hierarchy type things to have a good life, and I think it's better to have a kid that has a good life. Fuck, this joint's falling apart on me. Jesus. Papers suck. You know, I think it's a better thing to hold off and have kids when, you know, it's easier to guarantee them a good life than it is to just take a, if you will, stab in the dark and you know, have a kid, and you know, society turns out to be really shitty and they don't have what they need to be, you know, stable, and you know, if they're, you know, you can only become confident, you can only develop passions, you can only focus on yourself if, you know, you're stable in terms of having the fundamentals that you desire to survive. Or, well, I mean, the fundamentals you need, but, you know, you will also desire, because, you know, we are programmed by evolution to have positive reactions to, from neurochemicals to certain things like sex or foraging for salt and sugars, you know. So corporations have tapped into this, of course, by, you know, exposing us to way too much sugar, and so we get pleasure chemicals from our brain that says this is a good thing, this is a good thing, and it's really bad for us. So I think the trade-off of like waiting till there's a time where you're, you know, responsible enough to have kids, the world is maybe, you know, with a little luck, a little more responsible than they are today. Fuck, this joint is just, god damn it, these papers suck, man. fucking shit off of this. Fuck. Yeah, and this one's falling apart too. Like, what the hell, man? Like, I used honey oil the full spectrum oil to fucking glue these things down. I don't know why they're coming apart. I mean, they were very cheap fucking papers. But, yeah, apologies. So, yeah, I think it's important to give, children quality life, as opposed to, just hoping they have a quality life, where it's, if we live in a world where it's assured, that would be a good thing. And well, I think, yes, there's a lot of fear mongering in the media and stuff, because there are ratings oftentimes based on how scared we are. There are a lot of legit issues in the world, and as I said, in the last part that got rudely interrupted by my own incompetence, we do have enough resources and land plots and everything to go around and cover everyone, but that would take a drastic restructuring of society. And as a misanthropic pessimist, I just do not have much faith in humanity that will actually do that. God damn, man. What the fuck? God, fucking, now they're falling apart? Like, Jesus Christ, I'm never buying these fucking papers again. Like, I'm wasting so much weed right now. As I said, like, I put a fuckload of concentrates and stuff in this. Like, this is costing me money, man. Fucking bullshit. Those are fucking 5 joints, and they all fell apart, despite me using full spectrum oil and honey oil to glue them down into place, because I knew these papers have a tendency to do that. I guess that's all I'm gonna get, but whatever, I just smoked one, so I'll fucking, I guess, just stick those in my bong, because the papers are just soaked in fucking spectrum oil, full spectrum THC oil, so it's not just gonna be like ripping paper out of a bong. But yeah, I also would be willing to make the trade-off of, like I said in my last video, like voluntary sterilization. If we were to, and this would also take a huge restructuring of society and how ideologies drive so much of society. I think if we were to be able to convince people to actually consider getting sterilized from an age where they're going to be sexually active but too young to be mature enough to actually have a kid and be a good devoted parent, like before you even have a job, or especially like a career and all this stuff, like because you can't just tell people to hold off until they're ready. Not most people anyways. With my ex that I was together with for a while, like we even talked about like the notion of having kids and staying together for the rest of our lives without the institution of marriage, because we thought that'd be like the true test of a relationship, and that we both didn't want to have kids biologically, but like would be open to like fostering, but like we both, even though she is like way more established in life than I was. She was finishing like a degree that what was the name of the degree? Practicum. She was getting her practicum for being a pharmaceutical technician at a very prestigious university, and she had a job as a pharmacist. So she was leagues above me in terms of functioning, but even said I don't think I'm like emotionally ready to have kids. I don't even like being around kids, so like, I don't want them. And trust me, if there's anyone in the world who could have saved my fucking shit genes, it would have been her. She had some good genes. I know that sounds so creepy. That's why I said that. So I've heard people say that before, and it's like usually like racist people, like white nationalists or whatever. She has good genes. Look at fucking this and shit. Like a penultimate example of who we should procreate with, who we should use as a baby male. Like, I think these parental roles and all that are a big part of why we suffer in this world. Like, there's never been a time in my life where I've been alive where I don't remember young people, soon to be parents, like people with good jobs and everything, planning to become parents. They have a house, I've already got the IKEA fucking baby crib ready to go and everything. Like, they put a lot of investment into having the kid prior. Like, with all that, I'd see them reading like Parenting for Dummies and stuff, and it's like, I just can't imagine there is ever like a definitive book on parenting. It seems like something that would vary tremendously from individual to individual. And so I think that leads to a lot of harm, and that they take the advice of other people who have kids with different personalities and try to force what those people used to tame those personalities on their children. Like, I think that would obviously cause suffering and confusion. Like, it's just, there's also a lot of rich couples around me. I see like every year they'll have an extra kid, and like usually they're traveling a lot, so they're not around to see their kids very much. A huge part of why we suffer is, in addition to all that, and older generations I don't think would empathize with this as much, because this is much more prevalent since, I would say, the 90s, probably, since the internet especially. There is a real absence of role models, and I think it's important for pretty much every kid to have a role model in their life to look up to be able to confide in, to feel safe around and not exploited by. And it's terrible when role models will abuse that authority for the purpose of exploitation. That's what can also completely ruin someone's life and throw their ability to trust people off track completely. But there's obviously more of a lack of direction in young people today than I think there probably ever was before. And I'm speaking personally here. I think that's why stuff like school shootings constantly happen. Kids realize that they're not going to make a name for themselves doing anything else, because they just feel like they're inadequate to live in society. I think a lot of people just aren't meant for this world. I feel like one of those people a lot of the time. But I'm here, so I'm going to try to make the best of it and try to limit the suffering my existence would inflict on other people. And I think I've been pretty fucking good about that. For the most part, not perfect, of course. I'm only human, right? I had honey oil all over my lips. It's also very hard to find your identity in the age of TikTok and YouTube and all that, where parasocial relationships are more palpable than they ever have before, and that, you know, like if you're watching this video, it may almost feel like you're having a conversation with someone. And, you know, since I'm a small channel and, you know, I'm always looking to talk to people, you know, if you leave a comment, I'll talk to you. Even if you're being a dick, you know. But, you know, I usually, I try to civilly handle people being dicks, but sometimes, if a dick pops up, you just gotta fucking smoke it. Yes, that was a deliberate play on words. Smoking some pole. Smoking those poles from pole on 4chan. Ha ha ha. Yeah, anyways, I think, you know, it would be great if we could take the next 10 years to restructure society, to build a world where it would be ideal to live for just about anyone, where, you know, there are prospects that are abundant, people can be themselves as long as they're not hurting anyone else directly in the process. Like, you know, a big part of the suffering as well, and I hinted at this a little bit in the last video, that, you know, is just consider it fluidly one big video, like I didn't accidentally hit the button that turns off the camera. Just pretend that didn't happen, and make a playlist or something, I don't know, or listen to it in 2 parts. My videos are pretty long, so I totally understand if you don't want to listen to me blather on and on. But yeah, like, if we could take a little bit of time to be reflective and introspective and go, okay, this is what we got to fix in society, on the planet. These are the amends we got to make. And then people can feel like, oh yeah, and these are the pretenses we've got to stop. Like, you know, stuff like fear-mongering media and whatnot, that, you know, or, you know, selling fucking candy and soda pops to kids, but going, you know, these will kill you. You know, it's like, just like educate people, but like, that's a huge thing. It's like having a decent education system for kids. Like, education just has had a history of not being very good. It just leaves people feeling kind of lost if they even complete it. I have a lot of friends who haven't even graduated high school. Like, I think I graduated like 5 years before most of my friends, because I just fucking, you know, I was admittedly a truant in grade 8, grade 9. I fucked off a lot, but I would come to my teachers at the end of every term and I would beg them just to give me all the projects and stuff that I needed to do to get a passing grade, and I would do that. But then I got my shit together, and I didn't stay out all night fucking flailing with my ex and my friends on acid or whatever. No, I started going to school, and like, I was like, you know what, I might as well get this out of the way while I'm here. And I fucking managed to graduate with honors in grade 12. Time I got to grade 12, I only had 3 electives left that I had to do, so it was super fucking easy. Like, that was pretty ideal for me. But then, you know, I took a gap year, and that gap year was the same year where oxys became unabusable, and I started doing heroin stuff because of lack of meaning. I couldn't travel because I was on methadone already. Like, you know, I think we need to have an environment in the world, and, you know, it's very, I think that it's very easy to quibble that just humanity is not capable of this. There's just too much corruption, there's too much abuse of power, you know, money grubbing behavior that makes politicians say things, make promises that never actually come to be. You know, corporations continually fucking poisoning the well, like literally, like they're, or well, pretty close to literally, they're like poisoning, like that, what's that movie, Dark Water, about, not, is it Dow? I know Dow had some pretty nasty, incidents and pretty nasty, oh yeah, it's about Dumont in that one, but, yeah, I mean, this is one of many corporations that just like abused the fuck out of their power, their status, which was, you know, seemingly untouchable at the time. The whole movie Dark Waters is about just a civil case, despite multiple people dying of cancer, losing their homes, their farm, the animals that they raise, mostly dairy cows, I think, because Dumont, was just spewing out like runoff into this river that would end up like going down to where all these farmers live. And a civil case means no charges were actually filed against anyone, just people were awarded some money. It was done, like civil cases are often done as like out of principle more than anything. It's to make a statement because, you know, like these lawyers aren't powerful enough to go after a corporation and to like actually get them in jail. Like they're just too well protected, they have too much money, and that's a huge problem. Like to lessen the sense of divide, you know, so we can have an ideal world for kids to grow up in, you know, we have to change like the economics, like class systems we have, because they're so disparate. And like there's such a like overwhelming sense of division in the world that in my short time on this planet I've never experienced. And I think it's actually pretty unprecedented, like how split people are politically. And like I remember this YouTube video of this dude who would go around and he would interview people saying they're liberals or conservatives, and he would he'd be filling out like a Pew political form, which, you know, if you consider yourself political at all, I would say you should do, because it's a good way of finding out where you actually stand. And you got to be honest with your fucking questions. You don't just say the things that you know are supposed to resonate with whatever political ideology you feel you resonate with. You know, people just say they're liberal or conservative, and because they've heard certain things that support what they want, but they just kind of overlook, you know, this sort of, they have this cognitive dissonance where parts of, say, you know, liberal beliefs, if you consider yourself a liberal, you don't like, you know, you just kind of overlook them. And I think that's unfortunate. And that split between two major parties, like, you know, any vote I make is typically like a protest vote, and not because I choose it to be a protest vote, but because I know any party I support, it has no chance in hell of getting anything more than maybe like 1% of the public's support. You know, people just, they know that it's either going to be liberals or conservatives, you know, Republicans, Democrats, I guess, in the States. Like that is unfortunate, and that leads to more of a sense of you have to conform to one side or the other, this us and them mentality that is just, you know, that's not good for like young, developing, malleable brains that you know, are looking for some semblance of who they really are in this world. So yeah, I mean, I would say that's mostly why I'm an antinatalist. I think it's not that people should just stop altogether, even though I do think I'm like almost at the point of fully agreeing that humanity is just like irredeemably fucked. But like, as I said, because there are enough resources, enough land and everything, and even though it is implausible for those to be properly used before, you know, the opportunity to make sure everyone's taken care of is gone. Like, I think that's like just really a pipe dream for that to ever happen. I like to have hope that we'll kind of get close to that, but I think, you know, people should approach antinatalism not from like David Bentar's philosophical, oh, don't have kids because it's unethical, because you're forcing beings into existence to suffer. Like, yeah, I personally agree with that, but you're gonna lose a lot. What's up, dude? You're gonna lose a lot of people.
Can I sit here, bro?
Yeah, go ahead, man. Here, I'm just making a video. I'll talk to you in 2 seconds. My name's Callum, by the way.
Nice to meet you, man.
Yeah, ditto.
I just want to sit in the shade.
Go for it. Go for it. Of course, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm just finishing up a fucking
go ahead,
video,
buddy.
but I will talk to you in 2 seconds because I
Yeah.
like talking to people. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. I'm not gonna disturb you in your video, so you get it.
Oh, well, I'm almost done anyways.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically, you're gonna isolate a lot of your audience if you say, you know, having kids makes you a bad person. So, you know, make an argument from a practical perspective. That's my opinion. I'm gonna talk to some real people. Bye.